The International Space Station hovers in silence over the Earth, orbiting 17,500 miles an hour. Outside it, emptiness. And an unimaginable cold, with temperatures of up to -455 degrees Fahrenheit, enough to freeze a full human in a second. Inside the ISS, the air is safe to breathe, flawlessly controlled by a sophisticated system that regulates temperature, oxygen, and humidity. This system is what sustains astronauts on board. But what would happen when a hacker gains control of that system? Not some overseas operative, not some covert operative, but a teenager from Florida, 15-year-old Jonathan James, was not trying to be dangerous to national security. He did not even seek fame or fortune. He was very curious and wanted to know how far down a rabbit hole he could go. But what began in curiosity would culminate in an arrest, courtroom appearances, jail cells, and a disaster nobody predicted. This is the story of a child with more ability and less supervision that reduced NASA and the Pentagon to their knees and paid the price for it.
Largest identity theft case ever.
Largest data breach in U.S. history.
That affected millions of people.
Jonathan was born in 1989 in a suburban neighborhood in South Florida. His universe was computers, not cartoons, not athletics, computers. His father worked as a software developer, and the early exposure kindled the spark. Jonathan was sitting at the family computer for hours when he was 6 years old. He wasn't playing video games. He was spelunking the machine, probing it, crashing it. His dad attempted to impose controls, parental locks, passwords, guardrails. Jonathan broke them within days. He learned to program himself from textbooks, C language, Unix systems, all before high school. While other children were playing soccer or learning algebra, Jonathan was reworking operating systems and reverse engineering programs. One afternoon, out of the blue, he wiped Windows off the family computer and replaced it with Linux. No one asked, he just did it. His parents didn't know what to do with it. His fixation caused quarrels. Eventually, they took away his computer. So he ran off. He refused to return home unless they returned it. That same obstinacy would later attract the attention of federal agents. By age 15, Jonathan had long since matured from inquisitive child to something far more sinister. A homegrown hacker with a knack for discovering vulnerabilities in even the most impenetrable systems. In the online world, he used the alias Comrade. He wasn't evil. He didn't wreak havoc. He didn't spill information or boast on bulletin boards. He bypassed systems like mountain climbers, not to do damage, but to find out if they could. Occasionally, when he discovered a vulnerability in a firm's firewall, he'd send a courteous message to the administrator, illustrating precisely how he was able to gain access. To him, it was a challenge, a game. But during the summer of 1999, he chose to play on the largest stage imaginable, NASA. Jonathan targeted the Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama. With a flaw in their system, he broke into 13 computers. After he got in, he discovered something worthwhile: the source code for software that manages the International Space Station's temperature and humidity systems. Code allegedly valued at $1.7 million. And he copied it. Later, he described the code as less than impressive. Crappy, as he put it. He wasn't attempting to manipulate the station, merely observe it. Observe how the experts coded large-scale programs in C. But NASA wasn't concerned about intent. When they learned of the attack, they suspended operations for 3 weeks to probe and fortify their systems. It cost them $41,000 in damages. And Jonathan wasn't finished yet. 2 months later, he approached the Pentagon. More specifically, the Defense Threat Reduction Agency. These were the individuals charged with tracking the risk of nuclear, chemical, and biological attacks on the United States. Jonathan broke into a server in Virginia, placed a backdoor, and waited once he got in. He snooped on more than 3,000 emails, recorded 19 passwords and usernames. 10 of them were of employees who had high security clearance and access to military-level systems. To Jonathan, it was simply a game still. Exploration in cyberspace. He didn't steal anything, didn't sell anything, didn't destroy anything. But the government didn't view it that way. In January 2000, when he was just weeks from his 16th birthday, the FBI came knocking on his door. They took 5 computers, dozens of CDs, his Palm Pilot, and, strangely, his Star Trek novels. Jonathan admitted it, admitted all of it, apologized, and then silence. 3 months later, the government finally charged him. Jonathan James was the youngest to be convicted in the United States of cybercrime. Had he been 18, he could have been facing 10 years in prison. But he was just a kid, so they sentenced him to 6 months of house arrest and prohibited him from even using a computer for anything but school. He was also instructed to write apology letters to both NASA and the Department of Defense. But things became more sinister. He was drug tested and came up positive, a breach of his probation. So they sent him to juvie for 6 months. Prison changed him. He wasn't the same when he returned home. His father said Jonathan grew quieter, less motivated, distant. The enthusiasm he had once felt for exploring code was gone. The fun was lost. He abandoned hacking, for good. Or so he believed. Because while Jonathan stepped away, another hacker was moving forward. Albert Gonzalez. Gonzalez was a child prodigy too, self-taught too, and had a confrontation with the feds when he was a kid too. But rather than going straight, Gonzalez got further in. He was an integral part of Shadow Crew, an underground bulletin board used to purchase and trade stolen credit cards and identity information. When he got caught up in 2003, he cut a deal. He became an informant to the Secret Service, but behind their backs, he was constructing one of the biggest cybercrime groups the world had ever known. His business was massive. He and his team would cruise around, searching for weak Wi-Fi signals at retail outlets, a method known as war driving. When they identified a vulnerable network, they infiltrated it and installed sniffer software that logged credit card information in real time, and then sold the swiped information, or encoded it onto counterfeit cards and withdrew cash from ATMs. Their targets were huge: OfficeMax, Boston Market, BJ's Wholesale Club, Barnes & Noble, Forever 21, and then there was their biggest haul, TJX, the parent firm of TJ Maxx and Marshalls. They compromised the data from almost 100 million credit and debit cards. The bottom line damage? Approximately $400 million in losses. The biggest identity theft case in U.S. history. And in the records, detectives discovered a name, or at least an alias, JJ. They thought JJ stood for Jonathan James. Federal agents raided Jonathan's house once more in May 2008. He was 24 years old, still living in the basement. His mother had died of cancer. He wasn't in school, didn't work. He barely left the house. He was suffering from depression. And now, once again, his own history had come crashing in the front door. Agents ransacked through his belongings. They discovered a gun and an ancient suicide note, but they didn't take either. Jonathan had never even been charged in relation to Gonzalez, but now they believed he was a member of the crew, and Jonathan was sure that they were going to make him the fall guy. He knew the name Gonzalez in the subpoena. He remembered conversing with him online years before and made connections. Gonzalez was an informant for 5 years, and now he was caught again and wanted to exchange names. Jonathan was frightened, not only of jail, but of being accused of doing something he hadn't done. He recalled a paper that had gone around among hackers, Agent Steele's Guide to Getting Busted. It cautioned that prosecutors would lie, twist facts, and play dirty to win their cases. He believed it all, and he believed he was next. On May 18, 2008, 2 weeks after the raid, Jonathan was discovered dead in his house. He had killed himself. In his last letter, he wrote,
I do not have faith in the justice system. Maybe my actions today and this letter will convey a greater message to the public. Either way, I have lost control of the situation, and this is my only opportunity to take it back. It is not win or lose. It is not whether I win or lose, and being locked up in prison for a crime that I did not do is not me winning. I die free.
Later, detectives discovered that JJ was not Jonathan. It was another hacker, Stephen Watt, also called Jim Jones. Jonathan had never been indicted, never attempted, never convicted. He was never even implicated. Albert Gonzalez was eventually sentenced to 20 years in prison. The Secret Service found over $1.2 million buried in a barrel in his parents' backyard.